Good afternoon, everyone. Wanted to thank everyone for joining us today for Meet BigCommerce Enterprise, 5 Ways to Increase Profit in 2016. My name is Eric Jones. I'm the Chief Client Officer here at Groove. And with me today, co-presenting is Ethan Giffin, who is the CEO of Groove as well. Ethan, welcome.
Hey, what's up, Eric? How are you doing today?
Good, good. It's a beautiful day outside in Baltimore, so good weather.
You've got a very soft kind of NPR voice when you're on webinars. I like it.
Good. It's better than my normal voice, I guess. It's my radio personality. So we're excited to have everybody here today. Thank you from all the people here at Groove to all the people out there that have joined us. I want to give you a little bit of a background on Groove just for the 10 seconds, and then we'll switch right into to Ethan's talk on BigCommerce. So Groove, established in 2007, we were the proud recipients of the Inc. 5000 Word Award 3 times thus far. We're based in Baltimore, as I mentioned previously, and really our focus is on driving revenue through digital marketing, with an emphasis on analysis and strategy, branding and creative, website development, which we're talking a little bit about today, inbound marketing, and then certainly conversion rate optimization. So we're a proud partner with BigCommerce Enterprise and the BigCommerce organization there, and have been working with them on their new product launch. And so we're excited to share a little bit of what we've learned thus far, and I'll turn it over to Ethan.
All right, with that, so we've got an interactive session today that we're gonna be going through. We've got a ton of content. We are gonna have time for a Q&A at the end. So if you could just kind of check out the pane here from GoToWebinar. There is an area to type questions in. So if you want to ask a question, go ahead and type it there, and we'll queue those up at the end for our Q&A. So please go ahead and do that at any time during the presentation, and we'll get them ready on the list. With that, I think Eric's going to take over our first poll of the day.
Yeah, so we wanted to ask a few questions, again, make this interactive. So I'm going to launch a poll here in a second, and just to get a little feel for what everybody's platform is on. So if you guys can, just take a second and fill that out. So I'll give ourselves about 30 seconds to do that. So what platform is your store currently on? Obviously, BigCommerce, Magento, Shopify, Yahoo, or other are our choices. Just curious to see what the attendees say, and so we'll let everybody sort of vote in that. I see the tallies are coming in. It's always fun to watch that. So I'm gonna close it here in about looks like voting has slowed down. So in 3, 2, and then 1, I'll go ahead and close the poll. And what I'll do is I'll share the results out with everybody. And so it looks like, obviously, no big surprise there. Majority of people on BigCommerce, whether that's BigCommerce Enterprise or their the platform in general. Obviously, Magento closely behind that, Shopify, Yahoo, and then other. We obviously know there can be a lot of platforms out there. So good to know. Just wanted to get a little bit of a background on what everybody was working on. And so I'll turn that back over to Ethan.
Great. So always curious what people are on these days. Question that I ask at all the conferences that I'm at. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get into things today. So we're going to talk about 5 main areas of focus: site speed and security, insight and analytics, user experience and design, site search, and then last, got apps, one of my favorite areas. So all of these are kind of equal in terms of what we think the e-commerce pie is made up. So we're going to be focusing on 5 areas, and then we're going to really focus our thoughts around 3 fundamental metrics, right? And that's average order value, traffic, and conversion rate. And every activity you do should be related to one of those 3 fundamental metrics. Every activity on your website, or every new task, or every new feature that you add. There's an asterisk there because there are things around either back office optimization, right? Like getting your warehouse and your back office running smoother, or potentially, a technical debt-wise that would cause you to want to take on specific projects around your website. But the majority of everything that you do should really focus on these 3 fundamental metrics. So we're going to start out with site speed and security, right? And it's just, I just want to go fast, right? Like, so my buddy Ricky Bobby, he just wants to go fast, and you should want to go fast with your website as well. And really, really interesting case study, and nobody's done it as good as Walmart, I think. they've really put together a lot of a really good case study based around site speed and conversion rate. And for every 1 second of site speed improvement, Walmart.com experienced up to a 2% increase in conversion. And those numbers are really telling. So we know that a faster a website performs, the higher that it's going to convert for you. At the same time, you want to make sure that you're starting out with a theme that gets you, or a master theme that's going to get you as fast as possible. And so Stencil, which is BigCommerce's new theming engine, comes out of the gate with a Google page speed score of 89 on the desktop with sample images included, right? So you want to make sure that you're starting with the good fundamental components there for that site speed. Even a 1 second delay in page time can cause as much as a 2% decrease in conversion. And with today's images being larger and also retina ready, right? Because retina ready images are many times 2x bigger than what you're seeing on your desktop. You need everything else to move faster. You also need to make sure that your website is scalable as you scale, right? So as your traffic is building and ebbing and flowing throughout your peak times of the year, many of our clients are seeing 30, 40, 50, 100% increases in overall revenue year over year. And with that, more traffic, right? You need more gas in the engine. So making sure that you have a scalable car to run your e-commerce is really important. Some of the stuff that I love about BigCommerce Enterprise, it's got 99.99% server uptime, automatic fraud detection, bank grade security. And one of the other components is DDoS protection. One of my good friends recently went through a pretty horrendous DDoS attack that crippled his site for days. And so it's also PCI compliant. So those are the things that you kind of get out of the box when you're working with BigCommerce. You also want to think about your true cost of ownership, right? And so this is a great matrix here where you kind of see positive value, negative value, visible, invisible, right? Things like new features and functionality on your website are a positive value, right? It's visible things that you can see happening. Things with a negative value are bugs, right? Fixing bugs. The invisible part is the technical debt that can overcome you when you're thinking SaaS versus on-premise, right? So even if it's just a time suck, that technical debt can have a pretty large expense to it, and it's really invisible, right? So you really want to think about that, and how are you gonna focus your time when you're optimizing your site, right? Do you want to focus it on things like bug fixes? Do you want to focus your time on maintenance and emergency patches, right? Like a topic of concern, especially. There's been a lot of those on platforms recently. And then do you want the visible gains out of that, where there's ongoing product development and updates and a really strong product vision from the overall team? And, really, do you want to be reactive with your e-commerce website, or do you want to be proactive, right? So we want you to be in that kind of visible, high value, where you're adding features and functionality that can help increase your conversion rate, not being reactive to security patches and DDoS attacks and other components that slow you down and cost time and money to work on. So we're going to tee things up with our second poll of the day, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we often hear from our clients is, there's many pain points. And so we always like to know from our client's perspective, and we'd love to hear from the audience, what is your biggest current pain point that you're working on right now, something that you're either frustrated with on a continual basis, you can't quite figure out, you've put a lot of money into to figure out, but what's causing you to really sort of, keep you up at night is always the statement I like. And so we'll give the poll a couple more seconds here. Looks like most of the polls are coming in. So obviously we've touched on two of these, site speed and site security. We're going to get to the user experience a little bit here in a second. So I'm just curious. Looks like we've got close to a majority of everybody voted. So I'm going to close this out in just sort of 3, 2, and then 1. So I'll close that. Let me share the results here real quick. So it looks like user experience is the big one, which is great because we're going to get to that in a second. Followed equally by site speed and conversion rate, with site security not being anybody's pain point. So that's always good. So it sounds like your friend, had an issue that is sort of rare in today's instances. And then constant updates and patches. It seems like that's sort of an ongoing thing. But user experience is certainly the one that's sort of frustrating our audience today. And so, Ethan, I'll turn it back over to you so that you can talk about that.
Yeah, I think people underestimate like what's happening security wise with their websites at times until it's too late, right? So it's one of those things, right? You only need that security when you need it, and so I think it's a silent threat to many folks. All right, so getting into to insight and analytics, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we really want everybody to be a mad scientist, right? A mad data scientist. And this is my boy, Doc Martin from Back to the Future. And this is really how you want to be with your website. You want to really start to think about how the numbers are affecting everything that you're doing. So some great features in terms of dashboards and analytics from BigCommerce, powered by Giraffe. This is an example of the overall order dashboard that shows you things like orders, visits, revenue, conversion rate, average order value. You want to be able to look at your site at a glance and tell those components. You also want to be able to look at things like your purchase funnel and abandoned carts. Those are important things as well. Merchandising, what categories and products and SKUs are your fastest selling and most selling, right? It's the 80-20 rule. And we'll probably have a rerun of our merchandising session as a webinar later in the year, where we talk about product merchandising and your overall catalog. But what are the things that you need to sell more of, right? That are high margin items that are getting low volume, and how can you improve those, and why are they underperforming? Also, your kind of marketing dashboard, right? So where is your visit origin coming from your website traffic, right? And how is that turning into to revenue, right? And orders, but also what's the conversion rate and average order value? So you may find that that AdWords has a much higher conversion rate and a much higher average order value than everything else than social media. Or you may find something special that's really driving revenue. And so your ability to look at this through each channel and see how it's performing becomes very, very powerful. And this is just available at a glance under analytics. It's your customer summary, new customers, your percentage of new versus returning, when their last order date was, what their first order attribution was, are they new, are they returning? Important to look at on a daily basis, right? Because you want to get people, I talk about this in my marketing automation for e-commerce session, but you really want to pull people back off the cliff in terms of their last order date. And this is a good way to start to look at that. So if people are gone for 6 to 12 months from ordering on your website, they might be gone forever, and you've already paid for that click through AdWords or Facebook or another advertising source. This is the purchase funnel report. This is going to show you like visited, shopped, added to cart, purchased. So again, you want to see how people are moving through your purchasing funnel. Of course, those are going to decrease at each step. But the goal here is that if you've got a high bounce rate, it's affecting your shopped percentage, the percentage of people that looked at a product. And if you have a poor product page, without a proper ready-to-buy box and the proper information about those products, your add to cart stat is going to be increasingly low. Anytime you can increase each of these percentages, you're going to increase your sales automatically. So the more people you get to visit a product, the more people are going to add products to their cart. The more people that add products to their cart, the more are going to check out. So really trying to resolve the friction out of each of those steps. And a single percentage point or two could have a tremendous impact in your overall revenue, right? So really trying to grind out, what's working and what isn't is important. Here's an abandoned carts report. You can see what carts are abandoned, what your total revenue associated with those carts are. Again, the goal is to try to win those people back to come and purchase. Everybody gets busy. People get up and walk away from their computer. Their phone rings. Murder, She Wrote comes on TV. Little Better Call Saul reference. So again, any way that you can regain those carts, you're going to put revenue back into your overall pocket.
Yeah, I really like this report because it really lets me look at the product basis. So for an abandoned cart, I can see how many specific products were abandoned and what the sort of overall value to that was, and ultimately the overall total number of visits to each product. So this is an interesting report to me from the standpoint of merchandising for our clients. So we use this pretty frequently.
Yeah, it's a great overall report, and I love all these dashboards that come out of Giraffe. There's definitely like a deeper dive that you can make into these things. But as a CEO or a company owner, you want to be able to go in and look at these at a glance and just see how things are going. And it's either comforting or it makes you furious, right? So, like the great overall dashboards. So getting into user experience and design, an area that people just don't think about. And so, people that know me know that I have like my cheesy 80s movie references. And I love one of my favorite movies of all time is the movie North Shore, that is about a surfer from Arizona that goes to Hawaii and learns about the surfing lifestyle. And he's trying to redesign a very classic board shapers logo with all of this glitz and neon. And really, like what he was missing was the overall soul, right? What's your soul going to be, right? Because when you're competing against a faceless beast like Amazon, right? You've got to like bring everything that you can to the table to win customers, right? So what's your soul? And so really, when you're thinking about your website, it's tell your story, right? We think that you should tell your story, what your history is, really write great content, not just good content, great content. Things like buyer's guides, sharing your opinion on the products that you love and the products that you don't love as much, right, can go a long way in influencing shoppers on your website. Really show your niche expertise, right? How are you different from the big boys, right? I will purchase from someone that is very knowledgeable in their industry, because if I have a question, I can pick up the phone and call, versus Amazon that may be able to deliver it faster or even cheaper.
So one of the things I read recently, which I thought was a really good piece of advice, so I won't take credit for it, was when you're writing content, obviously a lot of products are the same in various sites. And so Amazon and product manufacturers, one of the things I said to write for from a content perspective was the psychology behind the purchase. So how someone would feel when they purchased it, and I know that feels a little ethereal, but ultimately why this is a good purchasing decision, or when they sit in a chair, what does it make them feel like? How high does it sit on their back? Not just this is a leather chair with wood armbands, things like that, but very much the psychology behind the purchase will help you differentiate your content when you're up against product descriptions from manufacturers and other competitors. So the little tidbit that I had.
That's a great tidbit. I mean, a lot to think about there, right? And there's a lot of ways to do this. And, when you're telling your story, you can do it through video, you can do it through images, and we encourage all of the above with that. The next thing to really think about overall is that mobile accounts for 50% of all e-commerce traffic. We see it growing and changing every year. So starting with kind of a mobile first design mentality, making sure that your site's responsive and performs well on multiple platforms. Again, like extremely important these days. We still talk to a lot of e-tailers that are not mobile ready, right? It affects things like search engine rankings. It affects your conversion rate, and something that if you haven't started with, you're way behind, and something that you should be thinking about. So how does your site respond on different devices? Talking a little bit about from a UI standpoint, the new stencil framework, which I find pretty amazing. I've spent some time out in San Francisco with the product team. I've spent time in Austin with the BigCommerce team, and I'm excited on where this is going. Some of the things I can't talk about publicly, but really, like, this is a next generation web theming engine that allows you to add logic into your template files. Instead of having 25 product pages, you can create one product page with logic. And they're just on the first kind of generation of this, the first rev of this. And we're seeing them deploy new features and functionality around this virtually every week. So it's getting me really excited. And, many of our clients are getting introduced to this. And the first batches of stencil sites are finally out and live in the wild for everyone else to see. So again, the ability to create completely custom user experiences with logic on a SaaS platform, it's definitely next generation. So if that's on something that you haven't looked at yet, or if you're on BigCommerce and you're on Blueprint currently, you're going to want to look at this very soon. And in fact, we just launched a site this morning that we converted over from Blueprint to Stencil. So some of the cool things with this, your ability to develop locally, from a development standpoint that we love, our ability to keep code and source control, the ability to preview changes on a local development website. We actually have been diligently working. We typically work in a model where we have developers are working locally on their desktops. We have a test server, and then we have production servers, and we've been able to duplicate that utilizing Stencil with a local staging server, developers working locally, pushing files up to the staging server, and then creating Stencil bundles at the end of that. So local changes can be made and don't affect the live site until they're pushed out. Unlike currently, live data can be used on your dummy sites, on your staging and development sites. Just improves the overall accuracy and the speed at which you're doing things. And then you can view those changes by sharing IP addresses and look at them on different devices for testing. And so we utilize Git for our source control, and we're versioning out those deployments and working with them locally. So a lot more to come on that from the BigCommerce team. But again, it's created a great experience for us from a development standpoint. The next kind of area that I wanted to talk about was site search. So site search, really important. What do we think about site search? And still to this day, this is very much one of my favorite quotes from Randy Moss. Straight cash, homie. That's what site search is to us, right? So typically, when we engage with an e-tailer, like we start to dig into that, and very quickly you can regain revenue and conversion rate by looking at the site search and fixing it. So these visitors definitely want to engage, right? So we know that visitors that engage with the site search on your website have a 300 to 500% higher conversion rate than the average visitor on your website. So these people are 3 to 5x more likely to buy from you because they're typing something into a box. We also know that they have a 25 to 50% higher average order value. Again, a higher percentage are ordering, and they're ordering more stuff. Like, that's the easiest and bluntest way to put that. It's often overlooked in the process. So I'll tell you, it's much easier to go from a conversion rate of 6.5% to 10% in your site search than it is to go from a 2.5% conversion rate to 3.5% overall on your website, right? So your ability to go in and start to tweak and tune that can turn into real dollars month over month really quickly. And we still go in and see people's top search reports, and it's like simple things that could be fixed or tuned to get people in the right direction. So thinking about, there's a great kind of filtered search, filtered navigation that's available in BigCommerce Enterprise specifically. The ability to put that together. What are the filters you're going to display? The keyword field. We were talking this morning with an e-tailer where a certain word is not appearing. Well, they don't have that word in their products. So by adding that to the keyword field, it's a hidden way in BigCommerce to start to have things show up when people are looking for them. You want to think about what your search box is, the size of it, the placement of it, your button and your call to action, your did you mean, your spelling. And then, typically we're big fans of Search Spring. And so we'll oftentimes plug SearchSpring in on sites during engagements. The ability to create synonyms, right, like unidirectional or bidirectional synonyms. The ability to create direct hits. So if let's say that you sell gift cards and people are searching for gift certificates, the ability to create a direct hit to get people to the right place there. Maybe people are typing in sizing chart on your website and they're not getting to the right page. Your ability to like link those words up and direct hit them. And then what does your no results page look like, right? How are you going to treat people that have failed without just saying no results and showing a blank page? So all things to think about with your overall site search. There's some good reports. These are not available if you use a SearchSpring or another third party, but those platforms have their own reporting. But you can see things like best performing keywords, keywords without results. Again, do you have things on your website that people are just not getting to? And search term corrections. What are the words that are being corrected? If they're being corrected, you may want to go in and put the right version into the keyword box on the product so they get to the right place. So again, the ability to look at these reports out of BigCommerce natively, something that's really super important. And then your overall worst performing keywords as well. Here's an example of an autocomplete from SearchSpring. Again, giving search suggestions, starting to show products and pictures of products. A third of the customers who search will click on a product image. So again, thinking about the different types of personas that are shopping on your website, the different types of people that are buying, all of those are come together in your search box. Your customizable multi-select filters. What is your filters going to look like? What is your pricing? What are your pricing fields going to look like? What are your colors and sizes? All of those are things to really think about and vet out a little bit deeper, because you can crank out extra conversion rate on all of that. And then got apps, right? One of the coolest things about being on a SaaS platform is the BigCommerce App Store. Here's an example of what it looks like. So there's a whole bunch of cool apps that you can install into your site, and more apps are joining the BigCommerce ecosystem every day. Here's a handful of some of our favorites, right? So ListTrack, a great email app that connects into for e-tailers, that connects into BigCommerce. InStock Notify, Shipper HQ, SearchSpring. Groove has built an app called Hubshoply. And what this does is this syncs your customer and order data over into HubSpot's powerful suite of inbound marketing and reporting tools, and allows you to create all types of extended automatic workflows based upon last order date, average order value, the products or brands they've purchased, the opportunities, post-purchase follow-ups. The opportunities are really endless in terms of the things that you can do once you get that data into your marketing automation platform, and that's Hubshoply. The cool thing is, from the App Store, you can go in, do a one-click install. You see Get It Now. That allows you to click install apps and add features and functionality to your website. Most things, if they do cost an additional fee, they do typically have some type of free trial period to allow you to test and see how you like it. We're also going to be sending out our ebook to everybody that signed up for the webinar. Our 5 ways to go big with BigCommerce Enterprise. It's chock full of information, and it's a great little ebook. We'll be including that when we follow up with all the webinar information post webinar.
Yeah, so what we want to do now is sort of, as we come to the end, we always like to ask that one last question. And that question for today is, would you be interested in a free site assessment or taking a look deeper at what the new stencil theming engine inside of BigCommerce can do for you? We've actually got a question in here from some people that I think will be relevant for anybody interested in that. So I'm going to let this run for a couple minutes and just sort of, I do have a question for you, Ethan. So, when you look at site speed versus the actual site search, and let's say, time is money kind of thing, where would you focus first, site speed or site search? Because they were kind of equal as a pain point, Where do you go first from that one?
Yeah, I think both of them have different different strokes. So at the level that I talked about with Walmart, right? That like it's a big kind of international corporation that's got a lot more resources than many than the typical e-tailer has. To me, I might start with site search first because that typically, like when we're looking at a site and we're analyzing it, we're trying to kind of look at what our initial triage is. What are the things that we can go in and fix and make an impact with quick, right? And so those types of things are typically areas of friction. So like the site search is an area of friction that can be fixed. Things like buttons, button color, product pages that don't give enough information or try to drive the conversion hard enough. All of those are kind of friction areas that we tend to look at. So site speed is really important. It wouldn't be for a mid-market e-tailer. It's probably not the number one thing to spend all of your time and resources on.
All right, great. So I'm going to move over to the questions. We've got a couple good ones that came in. So the first one, let me ask this one for you. Does everyone on BigCommerce already automatically migrate over to Stencil, or is there something that needs to be redone?
I think that's it's early in the process. So right now it's a manual process to move over to Stencil. I think that they're focused on the BigCommerce Enterprise folks first, and then eventually I think we'll see a wider transformation of that, at least from the ability to customize what you're doing. So I think that that's going to be if you have a custom site in Blueprint, like getting that over. You basically would have to redo it, retheme your site, and kind of not start from scratch, but re-go through the process again.
All right. So we have a question here from Magento to BigCommerce, right? So Magento E over to BigCommerce. Do you think BigCommerce is an acceptable solution for a $30 million e-com site?
I would say absolutely yes. So listen, we're big Magento fans here. We're big commerce fans here. There's different strokes for different folks. So if you have a site that requires a lot of customizations, if you have a lot of hooks, if you have extremely custom ways of selling products, not saying custom products, but if like you have something that's really unique, then Magento may be the best fit for you. If you're an e-tailer selling a product that comes in sizes that may come in different configurations, I would absolutely look at it because you may have the opportunity to eliminate the overall technical debt associated with that, eliminate your hosting, and get your hosting your software in one manageable package. So I would say that we have a kind of a report card that we utilize when we're talking about projects with folks that we go through to figure out, are they right or are they wrong for the platform? But I will tell you, size or revenue is not one of the qualifiers at this point, right? It's more, we've seen people that, sell, $1 million a year and need to be on Magento because of their functional requirements. And
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. So this next question really is mobile optimized versus mobile responsive. There was a question as to whether or not there's a difference between the two, or is it, I get mobile responsive sort of out of the gate with the new theming engine. Do I need to think about mobile optimized? So that was sort of their little confusion in market with that.
Yeah, I think like if you're on, I've seen some stuff with Yahoo and Magento where they're kind of bolting on a separate mobile site on the front end of this. I would say it's 2016 and it's really time. If you're not thinking about or engaging it with someone to build your responsive site, you're going to be like left behind very, very soon. So, I would really look at that closely and see where that lies on your strategic roadmap for your company. But in 2016, you really should be thinking about like being responsive in the next 12 months.
All right, and then one last question here. So, chicken or egg question: more traffic, better conversion. Where do you spend your time first?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things to think about there, right? Like not all ways that you build new traffic are immediate. So you kind of like want to make sure that you're setting a certain pace of building traffic. you also want to make sure that you're setting a certain pace of increasing your conversion rate. And I think that those are kind of two separate swim lanes that you can do at the same time, right? So, like, you should be blogging, you should be creating content, you should be sending emails, uh, and you also should be optimizing, optimizing the pages of your website and adding more product data so that you can increase your conversion rate. So I think they're both the same. I think you see some people get in these weird modes where they're not they're focused on one or the other. And I will tell you that, like, our best performing e-tailers are kind of have a kind of down the middle focus on both, meaning they're not going too extreme on either side, but they're doing fundamental activities on both traffic building and increasing conversion.
All right, good. So that's the end of the questions that we had received. If anybody has any last second ones, go ahead and feel free to enter them. Ethan, anything you wanted to sort of wrap up? Any last comments about this BigCommerce Enterprise? 5 ways to find profit in 2016.
Yeah, I think that we talked about 5 different areas. This is just kind of at a in a 45-minute webinar. We can only get so deep in each of these. There's a lot of information and thought that could go into each one of these. We could have we could have 4 webinars about each of those 5 topics to really kind of get deeper. But really, my biggest thing is really to just get out there and do it. Get out there and start creating content. Start looking at the dashboards in your site, and start thinking about what the user experience is on your website. And we're kind of at a turning point, right? Like, we're seeing a lot of people that maybe replatformed or redesigned in 2010, 2011, and things are moving faster than they used to, right? You probably could have gotten away from it, gotten away with it to redesign in 2004 and then again in 2010, right? But, like, the technology is changing at a much faster pace. And the other component is your competitors are getting much more sophisticated, right? So it's just not good enough to stay even keel anymore. You've got to go out and fight to retain your customers, retain your margin, and put the time and effort in. And it's moving at a pace that's much, much faster than it ever has. We talked to people, I remember, around 2010, 2011, that hadn't redesigned since 1998. And I will tell you that those days are long gone. I also met people in 2000 that just, like, created online stores and started selling $1 million accidentally, right? Like, those days are over as well. You've got to be, like, much more focused and much more sophisticated about what you're doing.
Great. All right. So I want to thank everybody out there for joining us today for BigCommerce Enterprise, 5 ways to increase profit in 2016. We'll be sending out the ebook, as Ethan had alluded to, and we will also be sending out the slides to everyone. Also want to go ahead and invite everyone to our next webinar, which is actually going to happen on April 7th, which will be focusing a lot on Magento 2.0. A lot of conversation around that. So again, as Ethan alluded to, we're equally in love with BigCommerce Enterprise as well as Magento, and so we'll be talking about that in the beginning of April. So again, thanks everybody for joining us today, and we hope you found this useful, and we'll see you in the future.